Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about a recent development that we are seeing in the Indo-Bangladesh relation, where Bangladeshi representatives have sent a note verbal asking for the extradition of the deposed Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, who has taken refuge in India since the August of this particular year. So let us try to understand what this entire issue and around what it is revolving. So first of all, the Bangladesh has acknowledged that it has asked its diplomatic representatives in New Delhi to send a note over verbal seeking the repatriation of the deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Now, first of all, if you try to understand what does the term note verbal mean, now it is a French term as similar to a lot of other diplomatic terms that you will see is having a French origin. So, note verbal in English simply it can be translated to a verbal note, because in the earlier time there was a tradition that verbally the diplomatic representative used to give the masses conveyed to him from his government to the government where he is stationed. So in this context, now it has changed. Note verbal is also basically a written request or written note that is given by the diplomatic representatives. So in this context, the MEA of India, the Ministry of External Affairs, has also confirmed receiving the request, and the Randhir Jaiswal, who is the current spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs of India. In this context, he indeed had confirmed that we have received a note verbale from the Bangladesh High Commission in connection with the extradition request, but as of now, we do not have any comment to offer on this matter. So, what is going to be the actions taken by the government of India? How India is going to respond for this demand of Bangladesh, we still have to watch and see, because government for now has not made its stand clear. Now, before delving deeper into the extradition treaty that India and Bangladesh has signed a decade back, first of all, let us try to understand the background. Now, we know that somewhere in the August 2024, due to the increasing pressure of the, we can say, protest against the Sheikh Hasina's regime, she had to flee the country, and since then she had taken refuge in India and has granted asylum basically. After she fled, shortly dozens of cases were filed against her, and not only against her but also the members of the Awami League, that was the party led by Sheikh Hasina, plus the military generals that were working under the Sheikh Hasina. And most of these complaints were by the students and the political activists of Bangladesh, and these were those who have faced the brunt of police crackdown that lasted in the last weeks of her rule, largely to quell the protest against her government. So, in this context, even the earlier instances and cases were basically have been opened up here. For example, in 2009, you have a Pilkhana massacre or Pilkhana killings, as it is called, when the Bangladeshi rifles they revolted against the government of Sheikh Hasina and began killing its own leaders also. And that time, what was her role? It has not been very clear, but to some extent, by the people of government, by the people of Bangladesh, she is considered responsible for Pilkhana killing or massacre. Apart from that, several members of her ministers and several other members of the armed forces who could not flee the Bangladesh in time, they already are serving under and are facing inquiry. So basically, they are serving prison and are facing inquiries. Bangladesh have also issued an arrest warrant against the Sheikh Hasina in the October, but the legal process is yet to unfold, because obviously she is not present in Bangladesh or not available for facing the trial and the charges. Now, in this context, we have International Criminal Tribunals Act of 1973. Now, as per this particular act, any country can trial any person in absentia as well. That means there is no need for the person to be physically present during the trial. Trial can already be conducted. Even the judgment and the sentences, prison sentences can be given. And once the person comes, then the execution of those judicial order can be simply carried out. And this is something we have seen in many cases, like in the context of the Russia-Ukraine war that is going on. You will see that Ukrainian courts have tried many of the Russian army generals in absentia, where they have been given a sentence of 10, 15, 20, even life imprisonment as such. However, if the Bangladeshi court and the authorities indeed go ahead with such acts, where we can say they take part in the in absentia trial, the fairness of the proceedings and the adherence to due process can be questioned, because Sheikh Hasina will not be able to put up her point and she will not be able to defend herself. Therefore, the extradition of the former Prime Minister is considered crucial by the Bangladeshi government and the authorities. Now, what can help here is the extradition treaty that the Bangladesh and India had signed somewhere in the year 2013. The major reason behind the signing of this agreement was as a strategic measure to address insurgency and terrorism along the shared border. To remind you, India and Bangladesh shares a land border that spans over more than 4,000 kilometers, and India has the longest land border with Bangladesh. Now we know that the Bangladesh borders largely is basically with the West Bengal and the northeastern states such as Assam, Meghalaya, and Tripura. And in those areas, insurgency has been continuously observed even since the independence of India. And we have seen a general trend where the insurgent groups used to carry out large scale strikes, and then the leaders used to flee to the Bangladesh, where earlier they were given refuge by the governments, previous governments. So this created a lot of problem because the leaders could not be held accountable for the crimes they have committed in the Indian territory or vice versa. That is why both government agreed that it is a good idea to have an extradition treaty, and that is why it was signed. Further, in 2016, extradition was made more easier by carrying out an amendment, and the process of exchange of fugitive that is wanted by both nations after 2016 it becomes much more flexible, much more easier to carry out. Now let us delve deeper and understand what does the extradition treaty basically says. Now the first thing that it says that extradition cannot be done for any person who has committed any kind of crime. There is a restriction. And what is those restriction? Is that only such crimes where a minimum sentence of 1 year imprisonment can be granted is eligible for the extradition mandate. Within that also the principle of dual criminality applies. What it means is that only such crimes which are considered crime in both India and Bangladesh, with respect to that extradition can be carried out. For example, if suppose an act is considered a crime in Bangladesh but it is not considered a crime in India, India have no obligation to extradite the person if he has fled to India and has taken refuge there. So the principle of dual criminality and a minimum sentence of 1 year of imprisonment, if these two conditions are satisfied, then the extradition treaty kicks in. Now, if you understand and try to look at the current situation, the charges that is levied against the Sheikh Hasina is very substantial. Obviously, if these charges are indeed proven, she can easily get a sentence that will be more than 1 year. And also the penalties and the prosecutable offenses in this case is very severe in nature. So obviously she qualifies for extradition as far as the treaty is concerned. Also, if you look at the Article 10 of the treaty, earlier the governments have to prove that indeed the person who they want to extradite has committed a crime is indeed a criminal in nature. Now after 2016 amendment, that clause has been done away with. Now simply an arrest warrant issued by a competent court of any country, whether it is Bangladesh or India, is more than enough to initiate the extradition process. So that is what we have discussed earlier, that in 2016 amendment, the extradition has been made much more easier and flexible in nature. So does that mean that extradition, since all the terms and conditions of the treaty are being fulfilled, does that mean that India have to this necessarily extradite Sheikh Hasina? Now that is not true. Extradition can be refused as well. And the ground of refusal has been provided in the two major articles of the treaty. First is Article 6, where it clearly states that if the offense committed is of political nature, extradition may be refused. And second, Article 8 says that the country will have the right to deny the extradition or extradition request if accusation has not been made on the individual in the good faith in the interest of justice, or it involves military offenses which is not considered an offense under the general criminal law. Now, if you try to relate this to the Sheikh Hasina's matter, India can well take the help of the Article 6, where it can clearly state that the allegations made on the Sheikh Hasina or accusations made on the Sheikh Hasina is generally and obviously is of political nature, and it can then potentially refuse the extradition on this ground. The possibility of her being subjected to political persecution or an unfair trial, because currently the government is the party is opposition party against the Awami League government. So upon her return to Bangladesh, India cannot be sure that she will be treated fairly, or political persecution cannot be or will not be carried out against her. So these are the grounds and the clauses on the basis of which India can refute the extradition. Now, what are going to be the potential implications if suppose India indeed refutes the extradition request? Now, many experts argue that extradition treaty itself does not guarantee Ms. Hasina's extradition as the final decision, because she is not what you can call as a common person. She was the head of the state who has been deposed in what we can call as by a violent protest, not by the democratic process of the election. So the final decision about this will hinge more upon the diplomatic negotiations that India does with the current regime of Bangladesh, as well as the political considerations that how the decisions taken by India either to extradite or not extradite will play out in the future in support or against the favor of against India, we can say. Now, many experts argue that even if India does not agree for extradition, it will not cause a significant blow to the bilateral relations between two countries. Rather, it will be simply considered as a minor political irritant. And there are multiple examples of relations between the two countries being healthy despite pending of extradition request. It is not only the context of India and Bangladesh, but many such examples we can see across the world. Now, to give you example that whether such extradition requests have been successful in the past, so the answer is obviously yes. In the year 2015, India had extradited Noor Hossain to the Bangladesh, who was notoriously infamous for the Narayanganj murder case, where he carried out murder of 7 people, and he was given a death sentence by the Dhaka court. So Bangladesh was able to successfully extradite him from India. Similarly, we talk about India. India was successfully able to extradite in the 2015 Anup Chetia, who is a top ULFA leader. ULFA is United Liberation Front of Assam, an insurgent group largely operating in the Assam region, and he was in the jail for almost 18 years in the Bangladesh, but he was considered as a criminal and he has committed a lot of terror attacks, we can say, in the Indian territory. That is why government of India has extradited him. Now, in 2020, also we talk about 2 convicts were extradited from India to Bangladesh, who were responsible for the assassination of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who was the leader of independent Bangladesh, and also incidentally was the father of the Miss Hasina or Sheikh Hasina. So they were extradited. So that apart, extradition of Prashant Kumar Haldar, that case we can see, where the he is accused of committing multiple financial frauds in Bangladesh, and he is living in India, but his extradition request has not been approved. So we have both successful as well as unsuccessful instances of the approval and rejection of the extradition request. Now, while ending the topic, let us try to have a look at the Indo-Bangladesh relations. We know that India and Bangladesh have a very strong and warm relations since India has helped in the liberation of Bangladesh from the Pakistan. So, Bangladesh has today become India's largest partner as far as the South Asia is concerned. The bilateral trade volume or the value stands somewhere at about $15.9 billion as per the fiscal year of 2022-2023. And before the ousting of Ms. Hasina, both nations were even discussing a possibility of CEPA, that is Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, to further bolster and foster the economic ties. And even after her ouster, the government of India and Bangladesh have been continuously keeping in touch with each other. They have even sent, India has even sent its Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri recently to the Bangladesh. So Indian PM Narendra Modi even has spoken with the chief advisor of Bangladeshi government today, that is Nobel Prize winner Muhammad Yunus, and he has pledged that India will continue supporting the ongoing development projects that India had committed to. And the political changes that has happened in the recent months in the Bangladesh is not going to affect India's commitment in those regard. So that is how we can understand the Indo-Bangladesh relations. That is all about this particular video. I hope you got the gist of the extradition treaty and what are the possibilities in the future as far as the granting or you can say refusal of extradition request is concerned. Thank you.